Welcome to the next session. Not the most exciting content, but this stuff's really important. So try to bear with me as I deliver this scintillating information about best practices. So I'm Clinton Johnson. I'm with the Patterns and Practices team, and the Patterns and Practices team we work with customers around the world in many different industries, helping organizations like your own better leverage the power of GIS to achieve your missions and to accomplish your business and technical goals. The crux of the mission of the team is to increase your effectiveness and to empower you to be more and more successful. As you probably know, this session is a part of the GIS Managers Track. The Managers Track is designed to help leaders like yourselves grow your success in technology by embracing the business aspects of your role. Again, the mission of the Patterns and Practices team is really to amplify customer success. That's your success, by providing strategic guidance that's based on best practices and recurring patterns to help derive greater and greater value from your technology investments. And that's exactly the purpose of the best practices document. So you've been in discussions with business leaders in your organizations, and you have a pretty clear understanding of what solutions you need to deliver. You realize that much of what's needed requires or would greatly benefit from ArcGIS because you're pretty smart. And maybe you've identified some COTS configurable capabilities to include. You've even made sure to discuss risks from both a business and technical perspective. So now you're probably thinking it's time to start building or configuring those solutions. But before you start building, you really want to consider design. You may have heard a saying that suggests that you probably shouldn't build a house without a blueprint. This seems to make a lot of sense because otherwise you could end up with some pretty strange, unexpected outcomes. So likewise, you really don't want to build your GIS or evolve your GIS without a blueprint either. You want to be deliberate about creating a platform and providing the right conditions that'll lead to the outcomes that your organizations expect. And whether that be for an enterprise GIS supporting the needs of your entire organization, or a departmental GIS supporting the needs of a single business unit, or anything in between, you should really begin any serious effort to implement or to evolve your GIS with a blueprint. The Architecting the ArcGIS Platform Best Practices document provides guidance for the creation of blueprints for your own organization's GIS implementations. It's not itself a blueprint. Keep in mind that the best practices are described conceptually and are not intended to be used as detailed technical specifications for your very specific implementations. Just use these best practices as guidance as you create your own blueprints for your own GIS implementations. For instance, the document includes a conceptual representation of the ArcGIS platform placed into an architectural context. The boxes within the diagram do not actually represent servers or specific applications. They instead represent things like patterns of business use, generalizations of IT and geospatial capabilities, and conceptual boundaries that separate them. All of which may be implemented slightly or substantially differently in your own specific GIS implementations. The Architecting the ArcGIS Platform Best Practices document includes several best practices, which can be classified into about 3 categories. There are best practices that are focused on the people within your organizations, the people that leverage, implement, or support your GIS. There are best practices that are focused on the processes that enable and sustain your GIS. And there are best practices that are focused on the technologies that you can use to implement and evolve your GIS. And for each of these best practices, each of them are intended to be applied within a specific business context. So for example, when you're trying to understand or to explain the aspects of high availability, it's best to first understand why your organization, in a very specific scenario for a very specific solution, may need high availability. So here are some best practices that are related to people. Starting with manage identities. Identity information is used to uniquely and securely describe your users and their access to things like maps, apps, data, and analytical capability within your ArcGIS platforms. A person's ArcGIS identity can be either managed by ArcGIS using built-in security capabilities or managed with third-party identity management systems. Regardless of the approach that you take, effective management of user identities and associated credentials is necessary for your users to be able to appropriately use and to participate in your ArcGIS platform. Identity is an important aspect of any enterprise information system. And why is that? Well, certainly your organizations generate a great deal of public information. However, not all of that information that you create and manage is available to the public at all times in its life cycle. Moreover, you certainly have data, content, and capabilities that are intended for use by specific groups of people. Manage identity to ensure that the right people have access to the information and the tools they need to do their work. Having an ArcGIS identity allows a person to participate effectively in your platform, to access, create, and share items as part of one or more groups, and to use your platform to play a more collaborative role either within your organization or on behalf of your organization in the case of partners and contractors. Another people-related best practice is the patterns of use. The patterns of use describe common geospatial functions that reoccur across various organizational business models and environments. These patterns of use offer you a categorical framework for identifying and assessing both the current and future GIS utilizations within specific business contexts. Use the patterns as a framework to categorize and understand how your organizations are using the ArcGIS platform today. Use the patterns as a framework to understand and identify gaps in your GIS use or find opportunities to reap greater and greater value from your GIS investments. And use the patterns as a framework to identify ways to meet new goals and to address emerging challenges that your organization might be facing. Here's an example of a gap analysis of GIS use across a set of business units. You see the business units going vertically and horizontally, you'll see those patterns of use. This particular example shows the need to increase sharing and collaboration in nearly all departments, as well as the need to increase constituent engagement and monitoring in quite a few departments. This example also shows partial or complete use of decision support, analytics, design and planning, and mapping and visualization in nearly all departments. Use simple tools like these to help identify and target opportunities across your organization. Workforce development is yet another people-related best practice. Workforce development is meant to equip your organization's most important asset, its people, with the knowledge, the expertise, and the experience they need to effectively use and expand the reach of your ArcGIS platforms. Devoting resources towards workforce development will help your organization to achieve greater and greater value and a faster return on investment from ArcGIS. So definitely think of workforce development as an investment in the people who implement and manage your GIS platform, its data and the applications you deliver, an investment in the people who leverage your GIS, and perhaps more importantly, an investment in the business services that are delivered to your customers and to your constituents, those services that are optimized or enhanced by GIS. The following best practices will be much more related to process. Apply IT governance. IT governance is a subset of a greater corporate governance framework that probably exists in your organizations today. IT governance is focused on IT systems, their performance, and risk management. IT governance can ensure that solutions are built and managed properly within the IT landscape. IT governance is about aligning technology with business needs and risk management. IT governance not only identifies what needs to change in your organization from an IT perspective, but it also helps control how that change occurs. Exercising IT governance within the GIS domain is critical for your long-term organizational success. In doing so, enables your ArcGIS platform to truly grow and evolve within your enterprise in a manner that really limits or reduces risk. Key elements of IT governance include things like software change management, IT service management, data governance, and workforce development. IT governance requires the right assignment of people into the right roles with the right goals in mind. Without these elements, your governance will be as effective as an unattended meeting without an agenda. And yes, there will be plenty of meetings. Application implementation strategies is yet another process-focused best practice. It's an approach to delivering capabilities that minimizes costs and maximizes opportunities for improving your development resource allocation. Applying a configure-first philosophy will help your organizations use the least effort-intensive design patterns necessary, and do so in a manner that addresses your business needs while minimizing lifetime costs. Organizations that use least effort-intensive approaches in their efforts to implement applications will tend to deliver capabilities much more quickly, and they'll tend to be able to keep their development resources focused on your organization's very unique and specific needs. On the other hand, the time and effort required to both implement and maintain solutions increases as you move from configuring to extending and on to customizing your solutions. Project prioritization is another process-focused best practice. Maximize success in implementing the ArcGIS platform by prioritizing projects, and do so in a manner that balances the benefits of the projects versus the challenges associated with implementing and delivering those projects. Project prioritization drives the creation of value from technology investments and greater success in your technology implementations. There are several ways that you can assess the benefits of your efforts. Leveraging the patterns of use that were described earlier, you can evaluate the benefits of new or improved capabilities by assessing the potential use of GIS by business units that they would support. You can also assess the benefits of capabilities by assessing the potential impact on strategic interest or strategic goals. The items going horizontally might look like business units, but they're actually strategic priorities that often cross organizational boundaries. Similarly, you can assess the benefits of specific projects by gauging their impact on strategic areas and goals. You might even find some opportunities to enhance the projects that you were going to deliver in ways that might either increase or create strategic alignment, and thus increase their value to the business overall. As for assessing the challenge or the effort associated with any of your proposed projects, you can assess the efforts by determining which projects require configuring versus extending versus customizing. Using that model, you can assess each of your projects to see which require more effort and perhaps come up with some simple scoring system that you can use to evaluate where they be placed on your 4 quadrants. Having done that, you should aggressively embrace those projects that will generate high value with low effort. Those projects that help execute enterprise or departmental business strategy. Those projects that fulfill business vision or advance the mission of your entire organization or of key business units. These projects can create wins for the entire organization and for your GIS teams. Then cautiously embrace projects of high value with high effort or challenge or risk. These projects can be risky, but they can also be very rewarding. Again, try to focus your efforts on those projects that will deliver value of a strategic nature or address some major business priorities. Then experiment with those efforts that are of low or manageable risks that will likely generate minimal business value. These efforts might actually help you create some tactical objective, achieve some tactical objective. They might even help you to provide an opportunity for developing some emerging technology that might be interesting and have long-term benefit overall. They might even result in a quick or easy win from a technical perspective. However, the value that they generate to the business might be relatively low in the short term, perhaps even in the long term. So be careful with these. And then avoid at all costs those efforts that are really low in value and really high in effort. If your team is like most, you've got a lot to deal with already. And efforts like these are simply not worth your time and not worth the risk. The following best practices are focused on technology. Starting with security. The topic of securing your ArcGIS platform should be addressed early on in the design process, especially since the techniques and approaches that might be required for your implementations can vary based on your specific business needs and your specific business and technical environments. They can even require very specialized resources. Information stored and delivered securely will improve the availability of your GIS and reduce risks of compromise. ArcGIS supports common security frameworks and should be configured to work within your organization's existing and established security models. Key areas of concern regarding security include things like authentication and authorization, filtering and encryption, and logging and auditing. Authentication involves verifying credentials to confirm the identity of a person or system attempting to access your GIS. ArcGIS can leverage centralized authentication stores like Lightweight Directory Access Protocol, or LDAP, Integrated Windows Authentication, or Security Assertion Markup Language, or SAML. In order to help create either a single sign-on experience or just to overall minimize the number of credentials that a person has to use and memorize in order to operate within your environments. Authorization ensures that properly identified users have access to the items, the data sets, and the capabilities that they've been granted privileges to use or to view. And depending upon your organization's identity store, authentication may require specific technology configurations in order to handle authorization. Filtering hardware and software aims to intercept invalid requests and attacks before they can even reach your server, where your server can execute them. your organization likely equips security capabilities like firewalls and reverse proxies to prevent unauthorized access to your private resources. Some security capabilities can inspect network packets and accept or reject them based upon defined rules around acceptable risk. Some can obscure the details of your internal networks and can be configured to perform things like content filtering, URL rewriting, and load balancing. The ArcGIS Web Adapter, for instance, is an application that forwards client requests to the ArcGIS enterprise machines within your environment and obscures machine and port information along the way and filters access to ArcGIS Server Manager and Administrator directories. Encryption of data in transit is an industry-recognized best practice to enforce the security and privacy of your data. ArcGIS should be configured to use transport layer security or TLS encryption. This protocol prevents the interception of secure data while it's being communicated. Furthermore, strong encryption methods like Advanced Encryption Standard or AES and secure hash algorithms or SHA should be employed to encode your data and detect whether or not your data has been tampered with or modified. Regular auditing and analyzing of system and application logs is recommended to provide a baseline understanding of your platform's use in regular operations. Anomalies in the baseline can then be used to identify security incidents or provide information regarding system problems or unusual conditions. Application logs can also provide event-level details around specific security incidents and policy violations within your enterprise. High availability is a design approach that helps you to meet prearranged levels of operational performance over specific periods of time. To achieve high availability, factors such as hardware, software, and governance need to be addressed. Highly available systems provide your organization with reliable and high-performing environments that meet or exceed your specific business requirements for service delivery. Your high availability strategy should consider things like the elimination of single points of failure. It should consider detection of failures as they occur, and it should definitely consider reliable failover. Certainly, there are a few types of business services that are more likely to require high availability configurations than others, and they're easier to explain and convince the business value of doing so. And there are some other business services that require a bit more consideration. For instance, the operation and maintenance of any number of business assets might require 24/7 access to either all or some of your GIS capabilities, particularly in the world of IoT and smart cities. Many scenarios may not require 24/7 access. They may not be 24/7 in nature, but they may require very reliable access and high-performing access during designated periods of time. In any scenario, the level of availability of various portions of your platform should be based upon agreed-upon allowances for or accommodations for downtime related to things like scheduled maintenance that allow you to evolve and expand upon the business services that you deliver to your customers and constituents, or simply unexpected outages. Environment isolation is another technology-based best practice. Isolating computing environments is recommended as an approach that will contribute to your system reliability, system availability, and it does so by creating separate and distinct systems for production, for staging, for testing, and development activities. Environmental isolation reduces risks and protects operational systems from unintentional changes and negative business impacts. Your production environments are where you serve your customers. And in some of your organizations, the services that you provide help citizens and businesses meet their needs day to day. In any case, your customers certainly expect to be able to use your services without any disruptions. On the other hand, your staging environments for your GIS platforms, as well as other kinds of testing environments, they're also very important, and they provide a lot of opportunities for you to do things like try new configurations, try out new components, and try to replicate problems that have occurred in production, and do so in a manner that doesn't disrupt any customers because they're not there. Staging and other testing environments provide several benefits. Staging and other testing environments allow you insight into what might break during patching and software upgrades. Those environments provide an opportunity for quality control and quality assurance. Staging and other testing environments can also enable you to perform performance testing. And overall, staging and other kinds of test environments help to ensure a stable, extensible, and high-performing production system. On the other end of the spectrum, development environments give you the space and the time you need to build new things without disrupting your customers and without altering your staging and test environments, which could be needed at any time to replicate a problem that's happening in production or to test the finished update to your ever-evolving business operations. Development environments support developer creativity. They enable individual build environments. And they promote that creative development of new applications and new capabilities while minimizing the fear of impacting other systems and the risk of impacting your customers. Certainly, your organizations may have more distinct environments isolated within your organizations. Again, the best practices are intended to be used as guidance and not detailed specifications. So build all of the various development and test environments that you need in order to protect your production environment from disruption. The workload separation best practice is similar to the environment isolation best practice. But while the environment isolation best practice promotes the separation of solution development and development lifecycle activities, workload separation focuses on separating systems based upon business workflows and other performance impacting needs. Workload separation is a design approach that enhances performance and reliability by aligning your technical implementation with your organization's specific business requirements. Consider different business workflows to understand how each workflow impacts compute resources or leverages compute resources. And then use segregated and pre-planned resource allocation to meet the needs of each of your specific business workflows. For instance, the intense spatial analytical needs of your crime analysis team could easily impact or conflict with, let's say, the real-time property account information lookup systems that you might have online, or mapping capabilities that support your online business transactions, or data reading and editing needs of your field maintenance crews who are working diligently to try to identify and repair damaged streetlights or hydrants or other assets. Consider separating relevant components of your platform to support varying and potentially conflicting business requirements to ensure optimal performance for all of your services. The publication best practice focuses on the act of delivering content, delivering the data, the services, and application that your platforms host. Delivering that content to the appropriate users and in an appropriate manner. The geospatial content publication strategy is necessary for delivering content to your consumers in a well-performing, reliable, and secure manner. An effective content delivery strategy must address performance, reliability, and security. Your organizations can make certain that content will be available and delivered in a manner that's suitable for each of your consumer groups by addressing those three factors: performance, reliability, and security. Your strategy should balance user expectations for performance and availability against security and load on infrastructure. This best practice is intended to help mitigate your risk while meeting your audience's distinct needs and expectations. So like not all cars are race cars and not all cars are SUVs. Each type of car, however, does consume the same types of resources, but in slightly different ways. And each type of car is chosen based upon the performance needs of each consumer that purchases them. Likewise, each of your user communities have different performance needs and have slightly different content needs. Develop your content delivery strategy in a manner that ensures optimal performance for all of your users. So what are some key takeaways? Having a strategy for how you implement your GIS is critical to success. Just as you wouldn't consider building a house without a blueprint, you shouldn't consider building your GIS without one either. Use a blueprint and develop a strategy for all of your GIS implementations and as you evolve your existing GIS platforms. The best practices are conceptual. Use them as guidance and benefit from the successes of others while you avoid their failures as you build and grow your own GIS implementations. There are best practices focused on people within your organizations. People that leverage, implement, or support your GIS. Leveraging these practices, you'll be able to design your blueprints and shape and evolve your GIS teams, as well as the business teams that benefit from your GIS platforms. There are best practices that are focused on processes that enable and sustain your GIS. Use them to ensure that your GIS teams are allocating their resources in the best ways to deliver business value. And there are best practices that are focused on the technologies that you can use to build and evolve your GIS. Bolster the blueprints for your own GIS implementations with the technology needs, with the technology you need and the manner you need to meet your organization's specific expectations. That concludes the presentation part of the presentation. The floor is now open. Does anyone have any questions? You, sir.
Question about best practices for having different environments, separate environments, for the staging, development, production environment. So you look at that, but what's interesting to facilitate the licensing journey? So I know Workfar used to have this public license, if you allow it to develop your license. But for staging and testing environments, that applicable to to use that license to, I guess, spool up multiple servers, multiple environments, as a staging and testing and development off of that, or is that different?
There are, depending upon your industry and your contracts with us, there are some specific non-production environments that you can license and some accommodations around that. I would definitely visit our solutions team in the expo, and not solutions, but the patterns and practices area, and get some more details about that. Any other questions? I can't see. Well, hopefully you appreciate the additional 20 minutes or so I've given you back in your day. And